Okay, so let's move on then. I'm going to ask all the panelists actually to give us their views on whether the COVID crisis will trigger a mass move towards in-housing, because it's quite a catalyst of an event, really, isn't it? And is this one of the things that's going to change? We'll start with you, Dawn. And
I think the crisis is, as I said, because we started with this cash reaction, I think it will force people to look forensically at the cost that they're spending and the effectiveness of that spend, and therefore to be much more curious about whether or not there's an opportunity to partner with people. So I'm already hearing that conversation happening, so that potentially opens up the opportunity to outsource and to therefore to not go in-house, but it will be a comparison, and there's going to be a real focus on cost, I think, especially because I think there will be the demand side of our world will be challenged for a while longer to come, yet certainly for the rest of this year.
yeah, and a mentor?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at the cost side, but I tend to think about what's happening here as people looking more at the idea of working remotely and distributedly, and having an outside or outhouse agency obviously is more distributed. And so I think that kind of flows into that narrative quite easily if people are looking for cost savings, and we're now figuring out that we can actually work quite comfortably in remote sittings, or at least comfortably. We're now learning more about what it is to work remotely.
Yeah. John, what do you think? Is this a major trigger?
I think Dom, both points are absolutely right. And I think Dom, the first start point, I think, will be people looking at cost. And they'll be looking at, I suppose, two main things. There'll be the media cost and then the actual agency fees. And I think what we've seen happening over many years is particularly in retail, digital's been performing quite well compared to the high street, so people haven't necessarily run the ruler over that as rigorously as maybe they have their rents or other elements of running their business. So I think what will happen now is when the squeeze is coming on around, right, we've got to optimize our business and reserve our cash, I think people are going to be looking at everything. And I think there's two parts to that. One is the overall agency fees, and is this now a time to, could we do this in-house? I had a conversation with the business the other day, and they were like, well, we pay our agency X, we could have 5 people for that. Well, I don't know whether it's the right thing for that particular business, but that is often how people look at it, rightly or wrongly. And then I think the other part of this whole exercise is looking at, are we actually investing our media in the right channel to attract the right types of customers? And I think what Don was saying before is there are quite a lot of businesses who knee-jerk reaction turned off a lot of their online media, but have still seen quite a lot of demand. So I suppose that then will question, right, what was the incrementality of that digital media spend, and was that a good investment? Yeah. But no, I think it's going to put it under question, and whether or not it's going to, I think it's going to put it on the table as an option. So I do think it will bring it to the table as a discussion, and I suppose what people need really is to understand all the elements of what it means to bring something in-house or not, and I think that's the challenge.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is a time when everything has been it's been thrown up in the air. Everybody's been, caught unawares, and nobody's sure where everything's going to land. I mean, some people might, as you've said, are experiencing a fantastic surge of business without really marketing, but on the other hand, that's not going to last forever. If you're not in that category, you're going to have to get marketing again to let people know you're open. So is this perhaps a really risky time to think about in-housing if you're not already doing it? Because it's quite a big learning curve.
Yeah, I think it's, in all of change, there's going to be opportunity and risk, and I suppose it really depends on your attitude as a business. I think even if you don't in-house, you definitely need to go through a process of challenging the existing thinking of your agency and questioning what they are and aren't doing, and how they're going to work with your budgets to give you the best performance going forward. Because I also, what you should be prepared for, and I think this is going to be an unfortunate situation, some of the analysis we've been doing is I don't think there's going to be, we lost, as Modo25, we lost a significant number of customers at the beginning of this situation, mainly travel businesses. And I know a lot of other agencies who've lost most of their customers. So I suppose if you're a brand or a retailer, what's your backup plan if your agency disappears? So I suppose that's something people should think about. Because again, it's not just customers disappearing for agencies, it could be agencies disappearing for customers. So yeah, there's definitely risks, but there's also opportunity. And I think it's a sensible business that reviews those and has that discussion.
Yeah,
John, I think that's a really interesting point about that, and that's what I meant by resilience. And I think a lot of businesses, a lot of retailers looked at resilience from a product and a point of view. So will I still be able to get supply of the product that my customers want? And what they haven't yet started to do or starting to do is to work all the way down through their P&L to what about the services I need to support me in the work that I'm trying to do to communicate with customers. So I think that point about making sure that you're, whether it's IT, whether it's marketing agencies, how resilient are they? Will they still be there? And how will they support you through a period that is going to require us to change relatively quickly?
Yeah, Minter, what do you think?
Well, I think that a lot of budgets have, for big companies, have had to automatically switch to digital. And because, magazines aren't exactly working so well, or newspapers. So in terms of where you're communicating, all of a sudden people are waking up to the power of e-commerce as a top possible channel. They're waking up to what's happening on Facebook. Everyone's come back to using Facebook, and they're using it differently than in the past. So if you're observant in the marketing area, this is an opportunity to ramp up the way you're doing digital. So afterwards, the question, like John was saying, is, well, is my agency the right people to manage the larger presence that we're going to have on digital? And are we prepared to delegate that out to somebody else, or should we be doing that inside? So these are the types of questions I think. So observing what's happening and feeling how it's different right now, and then in the future, how could this actually portend to having more digital presence, more digital conversations? I mean, all we need to do is look at how we've had 193,000 new podcasts come online in the last 3 months, which is an enormous jump on the Apple iTunes. See how people are all of a sudden saying, oh, wow, I didn't think about podcasting before. And now they're waking up to it.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Diane, just building on that, I think there is this point, isn't it? There's a whole cohort of customers that have found the digital channel either more regularly or just having found it. I mean, FaceTime with my mother who's 78. I mean, it's just one of those examples of people, that a cohort of customers that have started to embrace it. I'm not speaking to any CEOs who think that their store estates, for instance, are going to be anything less the stores than they are now, and that there will be much more engagement with digital channels and digital platforms for them, and therefore that, I think, that presupposes Minter's point about the fact that therefore you would expect some direction of spend to go into that to support that. Then the question is, I think, being much clearer about what you're trying to achieve. Are you in a customer acquisition phase, or are you in an activation phase, or are you actually trying to do something completely different?
I think that the interesting thing there is, as something becomes more important, people start wanting to take more control. And I think what we'll see maybe over time with this is, as digital for some retailers is going to become more and more important now, they will probably look at, well, actually, is it a risk having it sat somewhere else? Should we have that knowledge and experience in-house so that we actually really do understand our metrics? And I completely agree with Don. One of the biggest challenges we face all the time in talking to our clients is people around the boardroom table don't really know the metrics they should be measuring. So then they don't know how to manage it. So they'll say to their marketing director, oh, how are we doing? And the marketing director will go, oh, speak to the head of digital. Head of digital will speak to the agency, and the agency will give them a spreadsheet or maybe a nice online report. But actually, does anybody really know the levers that are going to drive their business? So if anything, this is going to make digital more important, and it's going to make it a bigger, more valuable part of their business. So they're probably going to look at, well, how do we take control of this and ensure that if the relationship breaks with our agency, we've got that knowledge in-house. So again, that's sometimes people are paranoid about leaving an agency because they don't know what the agency knows. And they think there's some magic and some voodoo happening.